roll over and she's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear the motor in the top of it going. And I knew she was in there.
3 medical examiners, which are all experts in the area of water-related death, along with 2 experts that are in the field of water death investigation, have all written opinions that's saying there's no other reason for this, what happened to Cynthia, other than a homicide and that she was forced into the water. So we've, in the last 3 years, had 5 experts extensively. We've reconstructed the crime, and they all concluded and wrote opinions that led to the change of this to a homicide.
Frank, if you had something to do with this, you're going to have to let us know now. No, what do you think happened? You think this is... do you think this is accidental, or you think it's a homicide?
Well, I would think it was a homicide.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you said that back then. You were saying that, that this looks like a homicide.
It sure does.
But the issue is, you're the perpetrator, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
nobody else did this. You're the guy.
But when you say face down, that makes sense to me, because a reasonable person would see what we're seeing and not call bullshit on something. You know what I mean? And if you want to like this, the term call bullshit, I'm calling bullshit on this because the way that the body was formed and the way that it was when we discovered it that day, she was face down.
It was just after 2:30 in the morning on February 28, 2000, when a 911 dispatcher in South Barrington, Illinois, picked up a call from a frantic man.
Okay. 911, where's your emergency? This is Quadcom with an ambulance request 60 Overbrook in South Barrington. Go ahead, sir.
Look, my wife is to the drowned. She's drowned in the bathtub.
She's drowned?
Yeah. Sir, we do have paramedics en route, okay? I want to confirm everything for you as we get them going. It's 60 Overbrook Road, correct? Correct. Okay. Stand by. Okay, sir. How old is she? She's 46 years old. Okay, is she conscious, breathing at all? No. Not at all, sir? Not at all. You got this going yet? Okay, sir? Yes. How old is she about? 46. 46? She was taking a bath then, sir? Yeah, she was in a whirlpool. Okay. She's not breathing at all at this time? Not at all. Okay. Okay, is anyone there with you, sir? No, just my baby. Just your baby? Okay. She's not anywhere near the area, correct? Oh, she's in the bathtub. I just dragged her out. It's just your wife, ma'am? Okay. I'm sorry, sir. We got them going out already. They're already on the way to you.
Barrington police are en route also.
Thank you, Barrington. Thank you. Okay.
On the line, he said he had just found his wife dead in their bathtub. Paramedics and police rushed to the upscale neighborhood, expecting a medical emergency. But the moment officers stepped through the door, something about the scene didn't feel right. The husband's story didn't quite add up, and within hours, that feeling would grow into suspicion. Had his wife truly drowned in a tragic accident, or had something far darker unfolded inside that bathroom? The truth behind her death would take 13 long years to finally come out. When officers first arrived at the Bushauer home, they found Frank standing calmly near the front door. His hair was neat, his shirt dry, and he didn't look like someone who had just pulled a drowning victim out of a bathtub. From upstairs, the couple's infant could be heard crying. Frank explained that he had gone to bed early while Cynthia took a bath sometime after 9:30 p.m. He said he drifted off, only waking around 2:30 a.m. when the baby cried. Realizing Cynthia still hadn't returned, he claimed he went to check on her, finding her submerged in the whirlpool tub. According to him, he pulled her out, trying to revive her, and immediately dialed 911. But the moment Sergeant Bryant Hanazuski stepped inside, something felt off. Frank wasn't wet at all, not a drop on his clothes or skin, and upstairs, the scene grew even stranger. Cynthia lay face down on the bathroom floor. A piece of red clothing covered part of her body. Rigor mortis had already begun, leaving her legs stiff and raised in an unnatural position. Water had drained away, and fluid pooled beneath her face. Nothing about the room suggested a frantic rescue. Instead, it looked oddly organized, almost staged. Then the injuries appeared: bruising around her neck, scrapes on her nose and chin, abrasions on her knees and knuckles. These weren't the marks of someone who simply slipped under the water. They were signs of a fight. From the very first moments, Sergeant Hanazuski felt certain this wasn't an accident. But in early 2000, instinct wasn't enough. With little physical evidence and no witnesses, investigators soon discovered that Frank and Cynthia's life behind closed doors was far more troubled and far more complicated than the quiet suburban exterior suggested. Frank and Cynthia had met through a dating service called Heart to Heart. At first, they seemed perfectly matched, both devout Christians, both educated, both looking for companionship later in life. Friends remembered them as inseparable, but the marriage began unraveling soon after they decided to build a new home in South Barrington. What was meant to be a fresh start became a financial disaster. Frank's cousin, who oversaw the construction, mishandled the project, leading to spiraling costs and endless delays. Cynthia blamed him. Frank defended him. Arguments became routine. Their therapist later encouraged them to write letters to each other, hoping it would erase the tension, but those letters revealed just how fractured their marriage had become. Frank wrote that he felt controlled and publicly belittled, at one point describing life with Cynthia as like being nibbled to death by a duck. Another major point of conflict was Cynthia's longing for a child. Though Frank was hesitant about adopting, he eventually agreed, hoping it might repair their marriage. Instead, it widened the distance. After they adopted a baby boy from Russia, Cynthia poured all her attention into motherhood, leaving Frank feeling invisible and resentful. Friends later said the couple no longer lived like husband and wife. Cynthia confided that she was afraid of Frank, claiming he had once put his hands on her and threatened her life. But without solid evidence, her fears remained unheard. Back at the scene, the coroner ruled Cynthia's death as drowning, but left the manor undetermined. Frank walked free, raising their son alone, while investigators quietly questioned the story they'd been given. For years, Sergeant Hanazuski couldn't shake the feeling that Cynthia hadn't simply drowned, that the truth had been hidden beneath the surface. In 2010, new forensic techniques allowed investigators to re-examine the evidence. Detectives reconstructed the bathtub scenario using the same model. Volunteers simulating forced drowning emerged with injuries identical to Cynthia's. Experts unanimously concluded she could not have drowned accidentally. She had been held underwater. Her death certificate was officially changed to homicide, and after 13 years, an arrest warrant was issued for Frank Buschauer.
So you guys make dinner. She's in the office, maybe.
Maybe.
You're playing with it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happens?
Well, getting ready for bed. I mean, we had probably had dinner late. You usually had to leave dinner later in the evening. 7 o'clock maybe. Playing for a while, getting him ready for bed, getting him changed, ready for bed. Maybe did a little reading. I went to bed. I know I had turned out, I was watching some TV in bed, and she wanted to take the whirlpool. So I said,
Did she do that often?
Yeah, she did, and I turned down the water, heated the water downstairs, and she'd turn it back up, so I was wondering whether she turned it up.
What happened?
She would take a whirlpool. I mean, she'd put straight hot water in there. I mean, she wouldn't mix it with cold water. I couldn't even take the heat that she would put in there. So, so I turned the heat and the hot water heater downstairs so it wasn't scalding hot. But that's the way she liked it because of her arthritis. She said it felt good for her joints and the pain.
Have you ever taken a whirlpool?
Oh yeah.
Oh, together or just separate?
We took it together a few times, and I certainly.
I mean, to the point where you You couldn't stand in there, or was it okay? Because the water was so hot.
Well, I'd have to have some cold water coming in before I go in. And,
All right, so she goes into a whirlpool.
yeah.
And where are you at this time?
I'm in bed. I probably watching a little bit of TV. And then I turned the TV off. I had my book. We had an assignment in the Peacemakers, the book. Peacekeepers, I think it was. Peacemaker. Okay. And I was reading the book and put it down for a while and fell asleep.
Do you know about what time it was?
It was maybe between 10 and 10:30, somewhere around there. Because then work is the next day, and so I fell asleep there and didn't wake up until I heard crying from, which was about 2:30 in the morning or so, and I rolled over to, thought it was her turn to, take care of him, and, said, Cynthia, you want to go into, the other room and roll over, and she's not there. And then I hear the motor in the top going. And I knew she was in there.
How did you know she was in there?
Well, the motor was going. It was like, oh no, so I got up and ran in there and found her.
How did you find her, Frank?
I went in there and I was looking, and the top of the tub was covered with scum of some sort, and apparently it was her vomiting. And I looked for her, but the water was still running in the tub, and I didn't see her. And then I reached down, was looking, and I think it was at the opposite end, and I reached down and picked her up and saw her face. And I knew she was dead.
How did you know?
Well, she wasn't breathing. She had been on there, and then I pulled her out of the tub over the side and onto the floor, and then I just left and went into the bedroom and made the call.
Do you know how long before the time you pulled her out of the tub till you called 911?
A matter of minutes, 5 minutes.
So you hear the tub running, you open the door.
The first door, yeah.
First door, you look in.
Yeah, then I had to open the second door to go into the bathroom. And I saw nothing but the scum layer on the top of with the water at the time when I walked in. And
Was the tub filled to the top?
the tub was filled almost to the top, yeah,
When you first looked in?
when I first looked in.
And then you look in the tub?
I looked in the tub. I don't know whether I looked in the tub and didn't see her there. I might have looked in the tub and shut off the water and opened the drain, because I was told later on that the tub level was down and that there was 6 inches of water according to some radio report. Well, that wasn't so.
Radio report, what do you mean by that?
Well, the next day somebody told me, oh, we heard about it over the radio. Cynthia died and she drowned in 6 inches of water. And I said, no way.
Somebody heard that, or
Somebody
you
heard
that?
Somebody told me. They said they heard it. And I said, no way, because the tub was full, and I know for sure it was full.
So when you went in there, were the lights on in the bathroom?
Well, yeah.
Lights are still on?
Lights were on as far as I recall.
So you notice she's not in bed.
She's not.
You hear the tub running.
Yeah.
Door's closed.
Yeah.
Open the door.
Yeah.
You go into the tub area, bathroom, and tub's still running,
Right.
lights are on.
Right.
You look in the tub,
I
you see her?
I didn't see her initially when I went in, no.
No.
Yeah.
And then you go to the tub, what happened then?
Well, it's a good question. I'm not quite sure of the details, whether I shut I reached in, I think I reached in and didn't feel anything initially, and probably shut the tub off.
Shut the tub off.
Yeah.
When you shut the tub off, then what happened?
Well, then I kept looking around, and I found Cynthia at the other end of the tub, not towards where the faucet was. There's a big tub, and she was over at the
How
other
big do
end.
you think it is?
Oh, I'd say it's about half this room over here, the corner half here.
Mm-hmm.
Big whirlpool tub.
I mean, to the point, if she's under the water, can you see her or not see her?
If it was just water, you could see her, but there was a scum on the top of the water that she apparently had vomited,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did not see her.
So then you reach into the tub,
I reached into the tub,
feel her,
you know,
you felt that she was in the tub?
yeah.
Okay. Was she face up, face down? Do you remember?
She was definitely face up, and they told me that wasn't possible the last time I interviewed people, and I'm saying, no way, she was face up.
Face up in the
She
tub.
was face up. I saw her, I pulled her out, and she was face up.
Right. Like your comforter or whatever?
Yeah,
And is this the view
Yeah.
into?
yeah, that's
And these are the two doors right here that you mentioned?
right,
The first one here, and then the one further down, and then in the whirlpool right there, correct?
right.
Um,
Are these solid doors or louvered doors?
Those are solid doors.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the one thing I do remember when I got there, and you brought me upstairs rather quickly, is that she was covered with this red sweater. I remember that right there. So we'll move on. This is bedroom 2. We're moving on to the next picture here, which is, we'll just put victim 1. Is that what you covered her with?
I don't recall covering her with anything, but
Okay.
Where's the whirlpool at this time?
I don't see the whirlpool.
Well, it's all white right here. You can see the ceramic tile.
Okay.
Here's like the first step that you were mentioning to me,
Yeah.
and then here's the wall, and then the whirlpool is up here.
Okay.
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 Is this where you laid her down?
Yeah, I would guess so.
Okay. Now, when you laid her down, were her legs in this position? They're in a fixed position here, which we call rigor mortis.
I do not recall them being in that position. I do not recall details like that, no.
Okay.
This is Cynthia, right?
That sure looks like her.
Okay. So this is Cynthia 1 then, right? We'll make it-
Victim 1.
So we'll just put,
Let's call it Cynthia.
yeah, we'll call her Cynthia.
Okay.
Okay, now.
Here's another view. Cynthia 2.
Okay. Okay.
Do you recall, now you can see the whirlpool in this one, and she's laying next to the tub there, face down.
Okay.
Do you remember putting her in that position?
I don't remember putting her in that position. I mean, all I remember is bringing her out of the tub here and onto the floor.
Where were you standing at, Frank?
Well, I had to probably get up on the step here in order to do that.
This step or way up there?
This step right here.
Oh,
The first step.
First step. Yeah.
Okay. So you're standing on that step. Initially, you stand on the step, you look in the tub, don't see her. And Then, what do you say? You start feeling for her?
Feel
Because the water's high?
high.
And then you feel her, you see her face up, and then you reach in, pull her by under her arms,
Probably under her arms, yeah.
and kind of pull her head first over here,
Yeah.
and then just kind of slide her, or
Under
did
the
you
floor.
lift her up and place her down there?
As far as I recall, I slid her out, but I don't recall lifting her.
Lifting her? Because she's not that heavy, you know.
No.
You could have lifted her with no problem, right?
Probably.
And then maybe with the adrenaline flowing or something like that, you might have a little extra strength. Boom. Pull her out. Okay.
Here's a picture of the whirlpool inside. I'll call that Whirlpool 1. And I see the water's slightly got like a brownish tinge to it, but you can see to the bottom, and you can see some of the feces or vomit that came out. The one thing I remember when I got there is that the tub was not full,
Right.
and the motor was still running. And I remember that the motor was bothering you, and you wanted it shut off.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Right, do you remember if the water was running at that time?
No, not when I got there. The water wasn't running, and the water was just a little bit higher than this level, which is right around the lower jets area, the big jets, the main jets, I guess you'd say. And then I saw her in this position, just like you. She didn't change. We didn't move her when we took these pictures and stuff like that.
Okay.
Anything that I'm telling you is incorrect?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So when you got there, the water level maybe below the jets? Is that why it's making so much noise?
It could have been. The motor was definitely running, and it
No
was,
bubbling?
No. And if it was just from spray going over it. But I know that later on, thereafter, not that long actually, you asked to have that motor shut off.
Okay.
And I think we ended up shutting it off at one point, obviously, because it's not running right there. Let's see here. Okay. So, is this how you found her, or?
No,
Okay.
the tub was way up.
And you can see right here on this one, in this picture, this part on Whirlpool, but there's actually some of that scum that you talked about. Either it's vomit or feces, I'm not sure what it is, but it was at that level.
Right.
So I could see that the water was at that level at one point.
At one point it was at that level.
But when I arrived there, within a minute or two after you calling, I mean, I was right down the street. I was actually at the movie theater down the street
Okay.
when you called. So it was, at 2 in the morning, there's no traffic, so I got there real quick.
Frank, how does the level get from being way up there to way down there within a few minutes? How does that happen?
Well, apparently I shut off the spigot because it was running, and whether it took me 5 minutes to make the call, and whether it took you 1 minute to make it there, I don't know.
We're going to call this roll 1-1, and these are just the smaller pictures of some of the ones I've already shown you. Same thing again with the view from the bedroom, or actually here, the bathroom, with her covered there.
Okay.
Is it refreshing your memory that you might have covered her? Because I did not.
Okay.
And when I went up there, I remember specifically, and this whole incident is pretty well burned in my brain of when I remember.
Okay. I do not recall putting it on her,
Okay.
but yeah, obviously I must have.
I was thinking,
I can see you doing that
Right.
because you don't want a shock value of the police coming. You're going to have a bunch of strangers. You just
Right.
called 911. A bunch of strangers are coming in.
To see my wife, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want strangers seeing your wife like that,
This is roll 1-2. Pictures of the bathroom, which is in between the master bedroom and the whirlpool room. Is that correct? Right there? Okay. And again, another view just closer up of Cynthia's body. And then there was some medications here on this sheet, which we'll call roll 1-3. Again, covered up. And you can see the legs in that position. And the interesting thing here is when you look at the body, you see that there's actually pooling of blood, which is lividity. I'm sure you understand that. But it shows us that she was in that position. For me as an investigator, when I'm looking at something and I see pooling of blood, it tells me that body's been at that position for some time and that the blood has gone with gravity to the direction of where the body is. So you can see here there's heavy pooling of the blood here in the breast area and then even in the face. And she was actually, to me, lying on her stomach.
Hey Brian, do we have the pictures of the injuries that were in there?
Yeah, I think
Let's
that's
go
one
to
of
those.
those books.
Because those are the kind of pictures that we just went over. So
Yeah.
let's go to those other ones and then we can take a look at those. Okay, Frank, let's see what we got here. There's some, this picture kind of depicts what they did. They rolled her over onto her back. She's still laying on the floor. And looks like there was a little blood and maybe some foam coming out of her mouth and nose. But looking at this picture, it looks like there's some injuries on her knuckles. You say that you may have seen something like this before?
I saw that, yeah.
Back then?
I
Okay. And do we know how that happened?
have no idea.
Prior to her taking this whirlpool bath, was there any injuries on her
No.
prior to that?
No.
You guys didn't get in any kind of scuffle or anything like that prior to her taking
No.
the whirlpool?
No.
That one's Cynthia A, this one's Cynthia B. And again, it just shows those knuckles right there.
Do we know how that happened, Frank?
No way.
Looks like there's a little scratch on her there, on her torso. Under her left.
You can't see this well in this photo. This is Cynthia C, but she had cuts here on her bridge of her nose and then down here by her mouth, along with a scrape here on her chest. So it just appears that there's a numerous amounts of injuries to her, you know, from what we're seeing.
She had something in her leg.
And then down here on her leg as well. You can see that line right there below her pelvis.
Do we have a picture of her knee, Brian?
Yeah, we do. Go back. There's a pretty good cut on her knee as well. I'll show you that one.
Do you remember her having any of these injuries prior to going into the tub? Do we know how these injuries happened?
Here's Cynthia D. And you can see on her right knee, there's a pretty good fresh cut right there. Did she have that? Like Bob was asking you the other ones, did she have that before?
No.
Do you know how she would have gotten that?
No idea.
Okay. Looking at these pictures and stuff like that, there was an autopsy done on her. Okay. And the pathologist at the time took pictures also. And he found that these pictures were suspicious also. So that's why at that time there was the ruling that was made at that time warranted further investigation. So we've had experts look at these pictures, and we've actually met with experts that we've been working with too. And what's happening now, this case has been ruled a homicide. It's not accidental, So there was injuries on her neck too, where there was a big hemorrhage on her neck, to where it looked like somebody had her by her neck and pushed her under the water. So, and we're believing at this point that maybe, that you may have had something to do with her getting pushed under the water and drowning. So that's where we're at this point.
There's 3 medical examiners, which are all experts in the area of water-related death, along with 2 experts that are in the field of water death investigation, have all written opinions that's saying there's no other reason for this, what happened to Cynthia, other than a homicide, in that she was forced under the water. The hemorrhage on her neck indicates that she was held under the water for a period of time where she did drown. She did drown, but it was because she was held under the water. And then during the medical examination, the ME also noticed that there was petechia in the eyes, in the scalp, which indicates the same thing, a type of strangulation type thing, or forced under, where someone's actually struggling to breathe. So we've, in the last 3 years, had 5 experts extensively. We've reconstructed the crime, and they all concluded and wrote opinions that led to the change of this to a homicide.
Frank, if you had something to do with this, you're going to have to let us know now. Just say you've been thinking about this thing for the past 13 years. So we want you to tell us the truth and exactly what happened here.
Well, we know that you're a good person, and we understand what was going on in the background, but I know it weighs on you, and you know what happened.
I've always wanted closure on this. Now, I can tell you one thing. My son one time came down to the kitchen, and he opened a cabinet door, and he peed inside the cabinet. And I slapped him on the butt and sent him to bed and cleaned up. And the next day I asked him what happened, and he said, nothing. He said, I don't remember you slapping me on the butt. I don't remember doing that. The only way I could have done this would be that without any recall, because I don't recall anything. And that's the truth.
Frank, listen to me now. It's not like there's somebody snuck in the house and did this to her. You're the only one home.
Right.
Your son is way too young, So, I mean, everybody that we talked to in the recent past here has said that this is a homicide. No doubt about it. And, we believe that with all the stuff that's been going on here with the house problems and
Natural
everything
drowning.
like that,
If somebody passes out and just falls down in the water, they don't have 17 different injuries to their body. It just doesn't happen.
so legit, man, you got to think. You think hard. There's no way. It's not like you dreamed this or anything like that, There's no way,
I have
You know what I'm saying?
I have no recall of anything there.
You gotta say something. You can't just say I had no recall. Plus, with Bryant being there so fast, the water being low, looking at her body, she's dry. You're dry. She's dry. There's no water on the floor. The only indication that she was in the water, her hair was damp. There had to be some time between the time you pulled her out of this tub and put her on the floor that you called 911. It wasn't an instant thing like that. You didn't call 911 and 2 minutes later, he's there. First thing he noticed, everybody's dry. How does that happen?
And that her legs are up in the air, which is a sign of rigor mortis.
Right. If you look at the positioning of her body, it couldn't have happened the way you're saying it happened, the way you're telling us now. If you look at her, here she is, lying on the floor. Her legs are in the upright position. Her body is stiff. To drag her over the side of the tub, her body wouldn't have been like that. Plus, this indicates to us that she was face down in the tub. There's lividity, like Brian talked about, on her bottom. If she was face up in the tub, her whole back would be red. You know, the lividity would be on her back. Everything's on her front. Putting her back in the tub, if she was back in the tub in this position, her feet would be sticking out above the top of the tub. So when you walked in there initially, you would have definitely seen her. There was no feeling around for her. The lighting was, basically the way it is right here.
And what you
It
see
couldn't be like the way you're saying.
the legs are actually formed in rigor mortis to the actual shape of the tub. Her head was where you said it was, but she was face down and the legs were going up on the side of the tub. And they rested there for a period of time until you pulled her out and they remained in that position. They don't just, when you take her out, they don't just go up. They have to stay in that position. Or if you, like you said, it would have been flat, you would have not seen this. This tells me a lot. And I remember that specifically. So one thing I remember that when I walked in that room, I knew she, like you said, she was deceased. But I checked for a pulse. And I saw that these two legs were in a fixed position, which would indicate, along with that lividity, that she's laying face down, opposed to what you're telling us is face up.
And she'd have to be there for a period of time for that blood to settle like that. When your heart stops pumping, you're not circulating anymore. So your blood settles to the lowest level. So that's what happens here. And then as time goes on, you get stiff, when you're deceased. Rigor mortis sets in. So this indicates to us that she's been there for a while, before you called 911. So, and looking at her in the position she is, like I said, her feet would have been sticking over the top of the tub. So when you first walked into the room, there's no way you didn't see her, So
The tub was still in the house. And we actually had someone the same size as Cynthia get into the tub. And when they put their legs in that position, and their head in that position, the legs actually go up, and where you could see them out of the water. And then also, I consulted with somebody who's been a whirlpool expert for jacuzzi for about 40 years. And he says, even with a bubble bath soap in there, you still would see a human body.
I'm sorry, but I remember what I remember.
You got to think back, because we're here to help you through this thing. You got to think back like it was yesterday, you know what I'm saying?
The last time I went through an interview with this, I was asked, how did I put my hands around her neck, and how did I do this, and how did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, as far as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recall any of this.
Do you recall? Do you recall being in the bathroom when she's taking a whirlpool?
All I recall is pulling her out of the water at about 2:30 in the morning. And I recall the tub being full and the water running. And the vomit on the top that I couldn't see her. That I recall.
And I know that you want to say it, and I know you don't want it to break your lips. But for your closure, what you know is true. You guys were having arguments about this house.
Oh, yeah.
It was heated. Those letters were exchanged.
Yeah.
There was most likely an exchange between you guys when she was in the tub, and you just blew. Because the next day you called somebody else and said you might have done it in a fit of rage.
People that we've talked to, they all believe that you had something to do with this.
And I've got from reports back then that this wasn't the only time that Cynthia was threatened. There was some physical, like, were you getting really fed up? You know, and this, you gotta stop this with, you just gotta stop this, or I'm just gonna leave you, I'm gonna divorce you, or I'm gonna kill you. You know, one of those things left your lips. And like you said before, the marriage was a mistake. But we need to come to closure on this, because everybody, and you're a man of science or engineering, you can see by what we're telling you, it makes sense. It's not illogical for what we're telling you. I mean, no person that drowns has 17 wounds on their body, including a hemorrhage in their neck. You don't just get that by falling asleep in a tub. There's got to be force applied to it to cause bleeding inside. And it was 2 up here. And it doesn't have to be forceful, just enough to hold it down and to cause a hemorrhage. And sometimes it can be just a little bit of pressure.
And that would explain these injuries on her also. You know, because she's trying to get out of the water, and you're pushing her into the water. So there's got to be a struggle going on here, a little bit, not some massive struggle or anything.
She's not even trying to fight you. She's just trying to get out. So she's just scraping her knees. And when we did the recreation with somebody in there, they started cutting their knees. They started accumulating the same injuries. The same things happened to somebody else when we simulated the same thing with what we believe happened. But you're the only person that knows what happened. Because Cynthia's not here to tell us.
And you're the one that can explain this thing away. Exactly. Instead of saying, I don't remember anything, I don't recall.
You know what? I'm not the one that can explain it away, Bob, because I don't recall. I really don't. I mean, could you... I thought about getting a hypnotist or something to try to find out, you know, what happened that night. Maybe to recall the details better, but no, I just don't. I don't recall.
You don't recall a struggle? You don't recall anything like that? How about an argument before? No. I could see you going over these notes and stuff like that, back and forth. She's giving you all kinds of problems and stuff like that that built up to this thing. It's not just like an overnight thing. It's been going on for years, to the point where you're doing counseling and you're doing all kinds of stuff.
Well, I told you that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, on one of these letters, just to go back real quick, letter number 8, it said, going to the peacemaker, flight may be a legitimate response in extreme circumstances when it is impossible to resolve the conflict in a constructive manner. Our arguments have been extreme at times to the point where rather than withdrawal, I am now on the attack. What does that say to you? What does that mean to you? If you're the author of that, what does that mean?
That doesn't necessarily mean physically. But,
no,
you know.
But I think it speaks to what, you're just not going to take it anymore. You're either going to leave, get a divorce, or, as happened before, if she keeps bringing up these issues, you might do something else. Because she told her friends that on a number of occasions, you took your hands around her neck and said, if you don't drop this, I'm going to kill you.
No.
And it's not just one person telling us that.
I did it once. It was only once.
Okay.
But I did do it once.
Can you explain that for me?
We had a meeting with and it was in the kitchen of the new house. It was before it was complete. And there was something with the countertop that didn't put in the proper doors or whatever it was. And she got so upset with him. She wanted the whole thing redone, and she made a big scene out of it. And I was very angry with her afterwards, and I think I put my hands maybe on her neck, maybe on her shoulders, and shook her and said, you know what, I could kill you. And I did say that, and I regret it. and I always did, and I told her that. But yes, there was one time.
I mean, she shared with a lot of her friends that she was actually afraid of you. That you were going to do something physically and then harm her. And hearing from what you're saying, how the relationship went, it sounds like you felt like you had no control of anything. And you're just trying to make things right. Like you said, I'm just an easygoing guy, but you got this girl who's not your wife, controlling everything, basically telling you when you can watch TV. And I could see how that could frustrate you.
Yeah.
But you mentioned to us earlier too that you remember for sure that she was face up.
I remember for sure.
But you can remember that, but you can't remember seconds before that. Anything like that. Everything else seems to be to what you're referring to as you can't remember. You can remember that though, and you can remember everything after that, and you remember everything before it. It's like
Just that space and time, whether you don't want to say it or you're afraid to say something,
No, you don't understand.
that space and time,
You don't
all of a sudden,
understand.
is there anything else that you don't remember?
Well, for sure I don't have a great memory. There's no doubt about that. My mother died of dementia, and my memory is never been great. So I don't remember a lot of things. If you start asking me details of whether I put the towel over her or not, detail I don't remember.
Because, you had a really good job, you're a very smart person, so I wouldn't call you that you couldn't remember anything. Because to go through college and get the education that you did, you had to be an intelligent person. And you remember certain things about that night, and you remember that too. So, you seem like you're okay, to me.
take a look at these pictures, Frank. We don't even have to talk. You know what I mean?
I understand.
You tell me.
I understand where you're coming from.
Tell me and Brian.
I think the same thing you guys are thinking right now.
What are you thinking?
Well, I think, he's the husband. He had a motive. He was there. Who else could be there? It all makes sense. It all falls into place.
So what do you think happened here then?
It's like I've been telling you, I don't know.
No, what do you think happened? Do you think this is... do you think this is accidental, or do you think it's a homicide?
Well, I would think it was a homicide.
Right?
Yeah.
You said that back then. You were saying that, that this looks like a homicide to me.
It sure does.
Mm-hmm. But the issue is, you're the perpetrator, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Nobody else did this. You're the guy. So...
well, that's what I would certainly think.
And we're not saying you're a bad person. You know what I mean? We're just saying we think you...
we can see how this could happen, actually.
How it escalated to the point of almost where you were saying there was no return.
I can see her pissing you off, and at the spur of the moment, you gotta shut her up.
And it might have not been on purpose or whatever. It just happened. That's what happened.
Detectives laid out the photos, the autopsy reports, and the expert conclusions. Frank, one of them said quietly, all the evidence shows that she was drowned deliberately, and you were the only adult in that house. Frank looked down at the table for a moment before responding, that's what it looks like. It wasn't a confession, but it wasn't a denial either. He then added, if I did it, I don't remember doing it. After that, he stopped talking and asked for a lawyer. The trial that followed dragged on for years, full of expert testimony, recreations, and re-examinations. But in the end, the jury was convinced. At the age of 70, Frank Buschauer was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Under Illinois law, he must serve the entire sentence, meaning he will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. To this day, Frank insists he has no memory of what happened that night. He has never confessed, never shown remorse, and continues to maintain his innocence. His adopted son, now an adult, also believes his father is innocent and continues to campaign for his release. But for Sergeant Hanazuski, and for those who remember Cynthia's quiet fear before her death, justice was finally served, even if it came more than a decade too late.